Hello and welcome to another episode of Chuchu as a Ranker. On this episode we're going to be continuing our Albums of the Year list. This time it's 2003, and 2003 is kind of a middling year, especially as it's sandwiched in between two absolutely phenomenal years. But as always, I still have 10 really awesome records for you. But before we jump into those, I will quickly address an oversight on the last list of 2002. I forgot Yankee Foxtrot Hotel by Wilco from that list, and that absolutely should have been on that list, but to be honest, I made a mistake and I just thought that was a 2003 record. It wasn't. Hey, what can I say? I'm human, we all mess up, but apologies to Wilco for that. So without further ado, let's be complete rankers and rank up a storm. These are my personal top 10 albums from 2003.
Broke my boy. I broke my boy.
So we're going to be kicking off this list with Casually Dressed and Deep in Conversation, which was the debut album by British emo band Funeral for a Friend. Now, much like skate rock, which emo grew out of, I'm not really a fan of it. It's just not really my thing, but in 2003 emo was all the rage, so when in Rome, I guess. And yeah, as far as emo goes, it doesn't really get much better than this album by Funeral for a Friend. It just has everything you could ever want from an emo record. Shredding guitar riffs, blast beats, vocals that go from boy band smoothness to frenzied scream at the drop of a hat, and lots of lyrics about misery and loneliness. It's basically textbook stuff, just performed at a higher degree of quality than usual. And yet the track listing is consistent the whole way through, and highlights include the alt-rockish storytelling, the catchy She Drove Me to Daytime Television, the awesome, thunderous Red is the New Black, I absolutely love that track, and the Iron Maiden baiting Bend Your Arms to Look Like Wings. Iron Maiden baiting because, well, the Irons obviously stole portions of that track for their own The Reincarnation of Benjamin Brigg a few years later. So yeah, if you have even a passing interest in emo, this is an absolutely essential record. Next up, we have Shoots Too Narrow, which was the sophomore album by the Shins. And yeah, the Shins aren't too far away from bands like Wilco or Belle and Sebastian. They have that whole kind of indie twee thing going on. And a lot of this album sounds really kind of bouncy and upbeat, but the lyrics are actually pretty dour and depressing. It's an age-old juxtaposition, but it works really well on this album. Yeah, and this album also wins points for its brevity. At 10 tracks and only 33 minutes, it doesn't even think about overstaying its welcome and is a consistent, breezy ride. Minor highlights include the opening single, Kissing the Lipless, the constantly ascending keyboard riffs of Mine's Not a High Horse, the super catchy Saint Simon, and the old country twang of Gone for Good. So yeah, really good stuff here from the Shins. Next up, we have Happy Songs for Happy People by Mogwai. And yet, Mogwai are a mostly instrumental band, although a few songs do have some kind of obscured lyrics. As an instrumental album, there's not really a lot to say about it, I guess. Most of these tracks kind of build up from quiet beginnings to become monstrously loud and fuzzy, and the melodies are all on point, and it's super atmospheric, as, well, any instrumental album should be. And highlights on this include Haunted by a Freak with its odd distorted vocals, Kids Will Be Skeletons, and Killing All the Flies do the whole build-up and explosion thing well, and I Know You Are, But What Am I somehow really reminds me of Giorgio Moroder's Scarface soundtrack. But my absolute favourite song on this, and a legitimate all-time favourite track in general, is the cathartic slice of sadness that is Boring Machine Disturbed Sleep. If you haven't heard that one, check it out, it's absolutely awesome. So yeah, Happy Songs for Happy People is a really atmospheric, consistent career highlight from Mogwai. Coming in next, we have 12 Memories by Travis. So this is the band's 4th LP and easily their best miserablest album, although I personally do prefer their more upbeat debut Good Feeling. So yeah, this is Travis basically just doing Travis, but doing it really well. The record is slickly produced and the production really brings out the energy of these songs as well as the more emotionally miserable aspects. And as a set of tracks, I think this is Fran Healy at his songwriting best. There isn't a weak song on this record, even if the band aren't exactly reinventing the wheel here. Highlights include the bopping single Reoffender, the Radiohead aping Paperclip, the surprisingly rocking Midlife Crisis, and my personal favourite, the closing piano funeral march of Some Sad Song, which is just Travis taking their brand of misery to euphoric levels of depression. It's a really awesome closer. So yeah, this is just a great album which provides the band with one last hurrah in respect to these lists. Back to making fun of Travis, I think, from now on. Next up, we have Elephant by the White Stripes, which was their commercial breakthrough into the mainstream. And while we're on the subject of the White Stripes, I need to address yet another faux pas I made on a previous list where I introduced them as a brother and sister duo. Actually, they're a couple, and were even married at one point, so introducing them as a brother and sister is kind of fucked up. Unless, of course, you're an incest-loving porn hound, in which case, please seek help, or alternatively, come around to my house with your sister on Wednesday, and we'll have some fun. But yeah, I hate talking about the White Stripes, to be honest, because there's just nothing to say. Their sound is awesome, but it's just so basic that it's kind of hard to describe individual songs and what differentiates them. So, to be honest, I'm not really going to bother with that, save for noting that Seven Nation Army has just one of the most famous and immediately memorable guitar riffs of all time, well, obviously. And yeah, aside from that, this is a pretty flawless, effortlessly cool set of southern tinged garage rock with primitive drums and badass guitar licks for days. What's not to like? So we're going to be kicking off this top 5 with Absolution by Muse, which was the band's 3rd album, and on this one the band are reining in the overtly colourful keys of Origin of Symmetry in favour of a more traditional sounding metal album. This is a very guitar forward record, characterised by memorable guitar riffs and buzzing distorted bass lines. And yeah, although I feel that this is actually the least sonically interesting palette amongst Muse's early records, there are still tons of great tunes on offer that more than make up for it. Time Is Running Out is a super catchy sing-along anthem, Sing for Absolution is a skyscraping ballad, Stockholm Syndrome builds up and pays off and has some really cool proggish elements, and Hysteria has guitar riffs and soaring choruses to die for. Yeah, and the other tracks on this are also pretty consistent, and there isn't really a weak spot on this entire record, so great stuff by Muse and a rock solid addition to this list. Next up, we have The Decline of British Sea Power, which was the debut album by, well, British Sea Power, who recently actually dropped the British from their band name and now simply go by Sea Power. The reasoning, they say, is due to the association with colonialism, which I personally think is pretty dumb reasoning, but hey, it's their band and their right to make their moniker way blander. What isn't bland though is the content of their debut album, which mixes savage punk, post-punk, art rock and Wilco-esque indie to make a concoction that's actually pretty unique. British Sea Power don't really sound like any other band, they just sound like British Sea Power. And yeah, this record is pretty flawless, kicking off with the vocal harmonies of Men Together Today, through to the glorious punk pummeling of Apologies to Insect Life, Something Wicked and Remember Me, and the more emotive widescreen vistas of Fear of Drowning and Carrion. Yeah, this is an absolutely fantastic record, and it's just really unique and off-kilter and just stuffed with awesome tracks, and comes very highly recommended. Great stuff from British Sea Power here. Coming in third place and taking home the bronze medal, we have Fever to Tell, which was the debut album by the Yeah Yeah Yeahs. And much like the White Stripes, the Yeah Yeah Yeahs are a stripped back act comprised of just guitar, drums and vocals, or at least they are on this album, as they would soon broaden their sound on later records. Where they differ from the White Stripes though is in style, as the White Stripes have a kind of southern blues tint, whilst the Yeah Yeah Yeahs have a more rhythmic, punky New York swagger to them, compounded by singer Karen O's overtly sexualized way of singing and aggressive lyricism. And yeah, the track listing is just great on this record. It's just so full of energy and crackling cool. Rich is just an awesome opener with its harmonic guitar riffs. Tracks like Date with the Night and Pin make me want to just jump around and play air guitar. Y Control and Black Tongue are super catchy, and the beautiful ballad Maps with its gorgeous chorus of Stay, They Don't Love You Like I Love You is just anthemic gold. That's a really, really awesome tune. So yeah, this is just an awesome debut and an easy placing on this list. Silver medal time, and the silver medal is going to go to the Neon Handshake, which was the debut album by minor emo metal act Hell is for Heroes. And yeah, this album fucking rules. It's heavy and catchy and avoids the pitfalls of typical emo and metal by having closer ties to alt rock and Britpop. And yeah, this band actually rose out of the ashes of the late Britpop also ran Symposium, and the track listing is just stuffed full of unforgettable tunes. Five Kids Go just kicks things off in anthemic fashion. Night Vision is an unbelievably catchy single cut. Few Against Many has an epic badass build up to it. I Can Climb Mountains and You Drove Me to It are about as catchy and awesome as metal or emo gets, and the closing trio of tracks, Slow Song, Sick Happy and Retreat, is just the perfect closing sequence in my opinion. And so yeah, basically if you enjoy a bit of heavy music, this album is just essential listening basically, which sucks as it never really got the recognition or success it so clearly deserves. So yeah, this is just one of those true underrated gems. Go listen to it, it's just awesome. So here we are at the top of the mountain, and the gold medal for 2003 is going to go to Dear Catastrophe Waitress by Belle and Sebastian, which in my opinion is easily the band's best LP. And yeah, this album doesn't really reinvent the wheel, but it does add some harder production sheen into the Belle and Sebastian mixture, finally giving the guitars an extra level of bite, which is much appreciated. But most importantly, this album just succeeds so well due to just straight fire songwriting. Every track on this LP has its own little hook, nothing feels like filler, and it's just consistently hitting the highs. Opener Step Into My Office Baby has an almost prog rock element to it, with constant time changes and atmospheric interludes. The title track and Piazza New York Catcher does the whole kind of traditional acoustic Belle and Sebastian sound justice. Asleep on a Sunbeam has beautiful female vocals and a distinctly Smiths-esque feeling to it. I'm a Cuckoo and Wrapped Up in Books have this kind of stomping single glide to them, making use of that aforementioned extra guitar bite. But my favourite sequence on this album are actually the last four songs: Lord Anthony, If You Find Yourself Caught in Love, Roy Walker and Stay Loose. Lord Anthony is a stripped back ode to being bullied at school. It's just awesome and catchy. If You Find Yourself Caught in Love features the unforgettable lyric, "But if you're going off to war, then I wish you well. But don't be sore if I cheer the other team, 'cause killing people's not my scene. I prefer to give the inhabitants a say before you blow the town away. I like to watch them play. I like to marvel at the random beauty of the simple village girl. Why should she be the one that's killed?" Just an absolutely fantastic lyric. But then again, Belle and Sebastian always was a very awesome lyrical band. Anyway, continuing on with the sequence, Roy Walker is just a great bit of 1950s bop, and Stay Loose is probably the most overtly rocking Belle and Sebastian track ever recorded. So yeah, this is Belle and Sebastian's career highlight and a pretty definitive win for me personally. on this list. So that's it. That's my 2003 list, but that might not be your list. Your list might look completely different, so please sound off in the comments section and tell me all the classics that I've missed. Like, share, subscribe, and all that other kind of YouTube jazz. Take care of yourself. Make sure to check back for my 2004 list, and by the way, 2004 is another fucking banger. But most importantly, just keep on ranking.
I'd rather listen to Lizzie, watch the Sunday gang in Chuchu.